It's the two megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS in past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.
My hip-hop will block the shot. My hip-hop block the shot. My hip-hop will block the shot. Block the shot.
Really Solomon, yeah, you know me. Quote, working from home, unquote, it's easy. Turn a 2-day weekend into 3. CBD within reach. TXT to MST to BD.
Vibrations in my pocket as my phone says I'm juking. It's the auto beat commander. He's just saying what I'm doing. Your retail work politely. I'm hardly feeling mighty. Think about taking off early. Log on and I'm almighty.
Wait a minute. Huh? There might have been a disconnect. Man in the middle attack. I had to intercept.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Radulich Broadcasting brings to you a Screaming Boy exclusive, and here's your host, Ronnie Adams.
I tell you what, I've been doing this for a little while, and that was the best intro that I have ever had. So, I thank you for that, Mr. Radulich. So,
You're
as
quite welcome,
Mark
sir.
has said, thank you. As Mark has said, this is a Radulich Broadcasting exclusive Screaming Boy podcast. Now, don't believe the rumors. Don't believe what you've heard. Yes, we are still around. We still do shows, just not as many as we used to as of right now. But whether you love us or hate us, we're still here, and we're still doing stuff. So tonight I bring on a couple of experts in their own right. One you have heard from already, and that is the patriarch of the Radulich Broadcasting Network, the mandated reporter, and frankly, he is mortified, Mark Radulich. Mark, how are you doing tonight?
I'm in a weeds thing right now. I decided that, sure, I could get caught up on harlots, but why not start another show to get obsessed with and ignore my children? So I started watching Weeds, and I stopped briefly to discuss tings with you, big tings. But as soon as this is over, I'm going right back to Weeds again.
Well, we all have our vices, I guess, and yours is weeds.
Mine is
not weed.
Mine is middle class people dealing drugs, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I did not get into that show, so but someone who has probably watched it and not liked it is with us tonight. My money is on not liked it. He is he is the Waldorf to the Statler of the Radulich Broadcasting Network. It is one totally Eddie's Pat Mullin. How you doing tonight, Pat?
Hey, Ronnie, I got one for you. Knock, knock.
Go. Who's there?
Weed sucks. That's probably one of like 5 things that I would rather not ignore Mark's kids than get into.
Right. I understand. But hey, like I said, we all have our likes and dislikes, and I don't understand. Right. What? What'd you say?
I said, and our vices.
Yeah, and our vices. But tonight, whether you love them or hate them, whether you've seen all of them or not, there was big news in the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe recently. We have, 10 years have gone by since these movies have started, since Iron Man first release, and we've seen it all wrap up to one huge event, and that was Infinity War, and then the 4th Avengers movie will be out soon. So with that came a movie that kind of shocked everybody that they were going to make, and that was Guardians of the Galaxy. And Guardians of the Galaxy came around, and we heard that they were casting Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, and I'm not gonna lie, I got a little excited for that. I'm a Pratt fan, and Dave Bautista as Drax, which kind of made me go, ugh, but he did very well. And then, so on and so forth. And we've seen 2 of those movies. But the big news that I'm speaking of that happened recently is Disney has fired the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy saga, which is one James Gunn. Now, this comes on the heels of some social media posts, some tweets that he tweeted out. I guess that's the proper terminology. That he sent into the internet 10 years ago, and some of them were, all of them were pretty. I mean, there's no other word than vile. So we'll actually, I want to start with Pat. Pat, the question that I have for you is, were you at all shocked by the release of these tweets?
Back in the 80s, we didn't have Twitter.
Right.
The closest thing we had were answering machines.
Right.
So, I'm shocked that this technology is in play. And I'm shocked that anyone with any kind of a public profile would not necessarily tweet the stuff out, because there was a point in time where nobody knew that James Gunn was the guy who wrote Romeo and Juliet. But
yeah.
Considering the shift in the social climate and how much it's become, I'm okay, you're okay, I'm special, you're special, we're all special, why you wouldn't go back and just delete the stuff knowing that maybe you said it, A, is one thing that shocks me. B, the fact that it wasn't deleted maybe tells you that he said it, didn't even think about it, so it's not something he's seriously promoting. So there's that shock me, but not.
Now, another question, and we'll get to Mark on the first one. Are you a James Gunn fan? Were you a fan of any of his movies, including Guardians of the Galaxy?
I really think the Guardians of the Galaxy films were terrific, and I think he's really the mechanic that made them what they are. I think a lot of the heart of those movies lies with him as director, so he can helm everything and really, make it work. I know Slither was really kind of his big breakthrough as a director.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't my type of movie, and I'll kind of leave it there.
Okay.
But stuff he's been involved with, as far as I'm a fan of all of the trauma stuff. So Romeo and Juliet, yeah, I like that. Those weird Lloyd Kaufman low budget things, I like that. And then I looked at other stuff he was involved in and wrote, like Dawn of the Dead was a fun remake. Scooby-Doo 2, as a Scooby-Doo fan, yeah, roll tide on that. And I didn't believe it or not, I didn't think Super was great, but I didn't think that was anything to do with him. I thought Rainn Wilson being in it was just terrible.
I'll agree with you on that. The content of the film really wasn't what I wanted. I didn't really enjoy that, to be honest with you. Not all of it, just some of the content. I'm not. What's her name? His sidekick. I can't remember her.
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page. I'm not a fan. Obviously, not a fan of hers because I can't remember her name. Nothing to do with other than the fact I just don't. I didn't like Juno. So I'm not a big fan of hers. So Mark, in the climate that we have, the social climate, as Pat put it, that we have, and everything going on, were you shocked to hear that this firing happened over tweets that were released 10 years ago?
No, I wasn't shocked. Of course, when this stuff gets reported, the immediate thought is that it's recent tweets. It's something like he just went on Twitter and said something stupid and got fired for it. And then you're like, oh, it's over 10 years ago? Why are we getting excited about this now? Was my next reaction. I'll be honest with you. When this all broke down, I didn't really dig into it too much. I talked to a person about it here or there. My wife talked about it with me a couple of times. And we deal frequently with the not just stuff that people say, but the idea of people being sexually assaulted or whatever 10 years ago, and then like that's the thing that gets my wife all amped up. Is like you hear about these Harvey Weinsteins and all these other people who may have actually sexually abused people, but the accusations are decades old. And people are sort of getting excited about it now and getting people fired about it now. And so I feel like, as far as how that relates to James Gunn, I feel like that got wrapped up in this bigger issue of #MeToo.
Okay.
Now, granted, he's talking, the tweets are mostly about, he's joking about having sex with little boys and stuff like that, which, when you read them... See, here's where I get frustrated. Because if you've ever listened to any of my podcasts, and I'll probably say something like that tonight, I say
You're
a lot.
You're going to joke about having sex with little boys tonight?
No, that's not my thing, but God knows I've made other jokes. I've made racist jokes. I've made plenty of racist jokes.
Wait, get right out of town. None of us are doing anything like that.
I've been on podcasts with Pat where Pat's made sexist jokes, and you have.
I've never accused Mark of being in control of the media or the banking systems.
No, exactly. Been on podcasts with other people who have made pedophilia jokes. I've been on a podcast with a person who's made pedophilia jokes at my kid's expense. So
yeah, that was a shocker right there, actually.
But it wasn't. But no, it wasn't. But I knew he was kidding, and I think. And that's where I'm getting
to that show.
Oh, okay. The point was, in context, it's blue humor, but let's focus on that word. It was humor. I think the problem with Twitter is the same problem I have with instant messaging people and in email. You can't hear inflection in people's voices. You don't get the context of a conversation. It ends up being interpreted as you read it, not necessarily as it was meant to be. I can't tell you how many innocent miscommunications have happened because somebody misread an email or misread an instant message and thought someone was saying something they weren't. And so, granted, when you read some of these James Gunn tweets, on their face they sound horrifying, but contextualizing it, it's supposed to be blue humor. And I go back to some of the great comedians of yesterday, your Mel Brookses and such, who were all about Bill Cosby, who were all about blue humor. And I feel like this is, and this is why I pushed to do this show tonight with you, was I feel like I said this when we talked about it on last Monday when we were recording, but I don't remember if it was Bill Maher or Dennis Miller who talked about when a civilization loses its sense of humor, how dangerous it becomes. And that's really what I want to comment on and what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are you, and just real quick, are you a fan of James Gunn or the movies that he's done in the past, including Guardians?
I mean, I was a fan of the Guardians movies. I wasn't familiar with him beyond that.
Okay. Now, I was a big fan of Slither. Or still am. I know that is my kind of movie. Just kind of a gross out horror movie with a funny twist to it. So I was really impressed with that, and that's where I was introduced to James Gunn. And I went back and kind of looked into him and found out that he did all the trauma movies, and he was involved in that. And I forgot that he wrote Scooby Doo. So that was that was like, oh yeah, kind of like M. Night Shyamalan wrote Stuart Little, which blew my mind. So I completely agree with you on the fact that Mark, that a lot of misunderstandings happen because in today's day and age, people would rather just text you than actually talk to you, or hide behind a computer or an electronic device than to have any kind of interaction with another human being. And I'll stand by that. Social media is a wonderful tool, but social media makes wonderful tools out of people. And because they get too heavily involved in it, and Facebook becomes my life. Did you read what they posted? Yesterday. Who cares? You don't know what they meant by that. But as far as these tweets go, though, I guess the question is, let's take that. Let's look at the content before we look at the context, and maybe we'll see. We'll dive a little bit into that. And forgive us, listeners, because we are going to read these, and they are pretty shocking at times.
Should I read them in a sexy voice? Just kidding.
I would rather you didn't.
Or do you have a sexy voice? Let's just put that to test.
There's a girl I went to college with who said that when my voice gets a little bit hoarse, it sounds kind of sexy.
Well, we don't have the time or the energy.
Amen to that.
Ronnie's already regretting this. I can see it.
So the first one that comes up that everybody was kind of shocked at was it looks like a retweet though. It says RT at pets. Well, I don't know what that is. I like it when little boys touch me in my silly place. And then shush, and then a photo shoot with other followers at Amalia, Stevie Sparkle, and Melissa Pizza, trying to maintain a semi-chub so that I look impressive in these photos. And
can I read one?
Yeah, I know which one you're going to read.
The Expendables was so manly, I fucked the shit out of the little pussy boy next to me. The boys are back in town.
I knew that's the one you were going to go for.
Wait, that's offensive?
That one made me laugh.
And then honesty. See, no, I'm not going to read that one. This hotel shower is the weakest ever. Felt like a 3-year-old was peeing on my head. Okay.
Not.
Well, that's not what.
I mean, how is what's offensive about that?
That one is not innocent, but it's not as bad as the others. And listeners, you can look up these tweets and see them for yourself, because
here's one you might like. Eagle snatches.
I knew this was good.
Eagle snatches kid is what I call it when I get lucky. Waka waka.
So, some of these makes me uncomfortable.
No, that's my hand on your knee. It's all right.
Totally comfortable with that, Pat. But you can look at them yourself for yourselves if you want to. But all it's going to do is stir up one emotion or the other, and get you, But that's good though, so it'll actually make you think maybe. Some of them are very disturbing. Some of them are, the majority of them are very disturbing. Some of them aren't as bad as the others, and some of them should, no human being, in my opinion, should ever say. But that's just my opinion. But I'm not into this kind of quote unquote humor. These were posted though 10 years ago. He has since recanted, apologized publicly, and has completely, from what I understand from interviews with different cast members of the Guardians movies and different stars, they say he's a completely changed man. Yet someone, and it comes down to left and right. That's all it boils down to. As someone on the quote unquote alt right drummed these up to bring them to the forefront to stir up trouble. Now, we're getting into the territory of these are 10 years old. 10 years old. Now, the content of them are horrible, and obviously some of them you all find kind of funny, in the context probably that they were made. Do you think that? And before I go into this question, I'm going to say, once you think about his past in the trauma movies, you kind of go, I can see that, because the trauma movies are not family friendly. We'll say they are not Disney movies like the Marvel movies and things like that. And there was some gross out humor in Slither, so you kind of go like, see where he could have gotten that. So the big question here is, I'll go to Mark first, and then we'll go to Pat. Should he be held liable for what he said 10 years ago?
Let me turn that around and ask a different question. Should people be fired for anything that they say on the internet, on their private accounts? I mean, here's the thing: he's being asked to direct a film, and and should his ability to direct or not direct depend on his ability to direct a film, or should it involve these other extenuating circumstances? Like, here's the thing. He didn't get fired for any incompetency. He didn't get fired for, what was it, Josh Trank, who fucked up the Fantastic Four movie? It was like, throwing tantrums and shit like that. I think there was another situation recently where there was so many problems with it. The Justice League. Well, Snyder walked off because of a personal issue, but
yeah, sure.
I was thinking of the Lord and what's his face for Solo, where they got sacked for incompetency, and rightly so, and then they had to give it to hack Ron Howard. He's not being fired for anything he did wrong on the set. He's being fired for something that has nothing to do with the movie. That's wrong. That's the thing is, I talk about this a lot with people, and I'm usually taking the other stance in that, I tell them this is a thing. Like, my wife's a teacher, and I keep telling her that if you put stuff on social media that people are going to disagree with, you're going to get fired from being a teacher, but not because of what you said. They'll find a different reason. Right.
Well, I mean, let's go to recent. Roseanne Barr, or whatever she goes, it just goes by Roseanne, I guess. Should she have been fired for what she said on social media?
I think it's the same context. She made a joke. She said this. She said this one woman looked like an ape.
Which, of course, when you're saying that about somebody of a certain type of ancestry or national origin.
Why are we dancing around this when you say it about black people?
Yeah,
I was trying to be politically correct to fit the mold of the show.
Nope.
There is no mold on the show. Just say what you mean and mean what you say. That's all I'm asking.
Right.
So when you call a black person anything resembling some kind of simian or primate, that is immediately racist. That's just the society we've lived in, and that's not new. That's the way it's been for a long, long time.
You know what cracks me up about that? One of my favorite lines from Married with Children is when Marcy calls Al a shaven ape. And it's because of his behavior on the show. I don't know, you guys all know Al Bundy from who's played by
Ed O'Neill.
Ed O'Neill.
Okay, yeah. Had it been Red Fox, racist, but it's Ed O'Neill, not racist. But it had nothing to do with any part of his ancestry or genetics or anything else. She was calling him, a Neanderthal. She was calling him an uncivilized person because of his behavior.
There are people that have taken that context, that are taken that and compared black people to to apes and things like that, and meant it as a racist remark that they are less than human and things like that, and that's where it comes from.
Is it wrong though that I say so what? But white
It's
people.
not. It's not. But here's the thing about it. Okay, it's one of those things where we're at a point by now where you should know that even if it's not meant, if you're gonna insult somebody in that type of way, you have to know what the immediate knee-jerk reaction is gonna be to that.
Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I know that in the world, and isn't that what we're commenting on? That
Whether it's accurate or not.
In an extremely sensitive PC world, I get that. But realistically, do people think that white people don't get made fun of?
Yes.
For generic looks or whatever.
Yeah.
White people and flat asses. White people, and pale skin. I mean, Jesus Christ! I watch enough. Speaking of weeds, I watch enough show, with black people commenting on the looks of white people. They're out there. It exists. It happens. And
the term that kills me is reverse racism. There is no reverse racism. There's just racism.
Right.
All around the board. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous term that should never have been coined. There are racist people in every race, in every nationality. I don't care who they are, what they are. There are racist people.
I said before, like I'm known to make a racist joke on any of my podcasts, and that includes making racist jokes. Again, tune into any episode of the Metal Hammer of Doom when the Dave Matthews Band gets brought up, and I rant about white people, angrily rant about white people.
I know, people that know you, Pat and I, and Jesse and everybody. We know that you hate everybody. So, I mean, I do not think in the least I do not think you're racist in the least.
But here's the thing I'll tell you. This is the second point to that point. I brought this up years ago with somebody who, I don't know if Pat knows them. You probably have never heard of these guys. The Lost Tribes of Israel.
Yeah.
Are they the ones that try to claim, like, that they were actually the true heirs or the true descendants of Jacob?
Yes.
And okay, no, I'm familiar with them.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm too.
So the guys in Manhattan are like super angry and super violent. The ones
Zionist pigs.
The ones in Brooklyn were actually willing to talk and kind of explain their point of view to me. Because when I was in grad school, I used to see the ones in Manhattan all the time when I would walk from Penn Station to the Roseland to go to Slayer or whatever. And they were always out there, and I remember this one guy very distinctly was like, "I hate all white people. I wish you all were dead. You're all the devil." Like the Staten Island ferry had a crash that killed a bunch of people, and he was just like, I wish it had killed more white people." Like, okay, well that's them, and you're not really making any salient points. You're just yelling you hate white people. The guys in Brooklyn, similar message, different tone. And the point that I'm getting to is I said to the guys like all white people are terrible. You just need to know that about yourselves. You're the devil's people, and we're the true heirs of.
You know who I hate more than people like that?
What?
I hate the white people who talk about how guilty they are of being white.
Hang on, that's a whole thing. But
that's a whole different podcast almost.
So long story short, too late. He's going on about how
take a drink.
He's going on about how white people are the devil and that blacks are the true heirs of the Jewish Empire.
The Lions of Judah. That's the Brooklyn sect, Mark. I couldn't remember their name. They're the Lions of Judah.
And I said to him, like, you do realize that I'm a social worker and I've probably helped more black children than you have doing what you're doing. And he was like, and I thank you for that. Doesn't make you any less of a terrible person.
Yeah, you're still the devil.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. We almost got off track there for a second.
Well, hang on. I brought that up. I'm sitting there like, why did I bring that up? Oh, that's right. I brought that up because I believe deeds define the person, not words. And so to take this all the way back to James Gunn, unless James Gunn has actually sexually assaulted somebody, I don't care. I don't find tweets about hurting children personally funny. I'm also a social worker who spent the better half of his career working with children. It's sensitive to me. To other people I know...
You're also a dad.
I'm also a dad. To other people I know who, A, don't have kids, B, don't work with kids, C, don't really like kids, rape jokes about kids probably are funny, especially if the joke itself is funny regardless of the content. And I get that, and I think that, and I think people need to compartmentalize that. I used the term racist jokes before. I mean, I don't know what else to call them, but I've never stopped anyone from voting or buying a house or attacked them on the street. I've done none of the things that are associated with a racist action. So why do jokes somehow matter in the same context, with the same person? That's the point that I'm trying to drive home.
No, absolutely. I understand that. It's.
I'm gonna come at this from a different angle.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, again, let's look at this. That this happened 10 years ago. These tweets, or at least the vast majority of them, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, 2 years after this fact, he was divorced. Divorces usually don't happen overnight. There's usually stuff involved that leads to that, and it's usually not comfortable for at least a year prior, usually more. Okay? On top of that, he had just directed Slither 2 years prior to this, and guess what he was doing in the interim?
A lot of drugs?
Nothing. Didn't have no job. With the one thing he had he was doing web, and one of those things was called James Gunn's PG porn, where he was doing stuff with well-known actors in like humorous porn situations where they were trying to make some kind of porno and like it got interrupted somehow or whatever. Okay, so obviously, one, his personal life isn't great at that time, and two, he's in a work environment where you're dealing with sexual situations every day and sexual humor. Okay? The likelihood that somebody's going to say something in that context is pretty good, and it's probably going to be, something that they're dealing with at the time, and that's just what they did. So, again, I go back to even something like the Hulk Hogan scenario where he dropped the N-bomb. Okay? That guy was clearly in that point at the lowest point of his life, between his marriage falling apart and all that stuff going on and everything else. And it doesn't condone the use of it, because there is no condoning the use of it. But when you were at the lowest point in your life, and everybody's had that at some point, you go back and think about where you were at the lowest point in your life. If somebody was taping you, or you look back at things you said at that point, are you going to sound any better than he did? Or that James Gunn did?
Well, again, compare that with what Hogan has done. Hogan is probably responsible for helping promote, or get work for more black men than white men, other than Brutus Beefcake and the Nasty Boys.
Right.
I mean, I think about when he showed up in WCW and nobody had heard from Mr. T in who knows how long, and there's Mr. T accompanying Hogan to the ring.
Yeah.
Take out the things Hogan said at that time with the context that Pat just provided. Has anyone ever heard of Hogan hurting a black person?
No.
Or stopping them from living their life? And that's the thing I keep harping on is, to my knowledge, James Gunn has never laid a hand on a child. Roseanne Barr's never stopped a black person from working. Hogan's never stopped a black person from working. Like, we're attacking people.
There was actually an incident. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
We're attacking people what they said, not what they did.
Right.
And there was actually an incident where a local quote-unquote hero from where I'm from, one county over. I'm from Logan County, West Virginia, and in Boone County, West Virginia, which is 15 minutes away from where I live, there's a man called Jesco White. And they found him so fascinating that Roseanne had him on her show. he showed up with swastikas tattooed on the backs of his hands, both hands, because he's an idiot, and he was taking so many pills and everything. I mean, it's just, you have to watch The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia, and then you have to watch Dancing Outlaw and Dancing Outlaw 2 to understand where these documentaries of what this kind of life this man leads. She refused to have him on the show. He then said, "I will cover them however you want me to do it. I don't want to miss this opportunity." Probably in less intelligent words. And she paid to have his tattoos covered. And he got 2 roses tattooed on his hand. She still cut down his time on the show to just being a credits. Credits were rolling, and he was dancing while Dan was playing the guitar. He was supposed to show up as a distant relative of Dan or somebody in the show. So I look at that, and I look at the things she said, and I can't compare the two because she was obviously, before the revival of her show wasn't in a very good spot, I guess. And but she's, you look at an instant, you look at a thing like that, and she's never really done anything, to my knowledge, to ever hurt anyone or stop anyone from working or blatantly said, "I don't like a certain race or a certain kind of people." And then you have the opposite polar effect, the side of that. The gentleman, now I use that term very loosely, Victor Salva, who actually wrote and directed all 3 Jeepers Creepers movies, is a convicted, was convicted of sexual assault on a child. In 1995, he molested a boy when he was in his 20s, and they still had him direct. He was prosecuted on it, and
he was arrested back in 1988 for it.
In 88, okay, 90, yeah, 90. Okay, I apologize. He was arrested in 1988 for it. I thought it was 95, but the movie Powder came out in 1995, which is a Disney movie, is a Touchstone movie, and they still had him direct it. He's still directing movies to this day. He did all 3 Jeepers Creepers movies. He's done other things. He's written things. He is still working, and he was convicted of sexual assault on a minor.
This is the official conviction. And in addition, commercial videotapes and magazines containing child pornography were found in the home. He pleaded guilty to lewd and lascivious conduct, oral sex with a person under 14, and procuring a child for pornography.
Yuck.
Yeah, he's a piece of crap.
True.
So, I mean, we've got obviously a director that has done a movie for Disney after the fact that he was convicted of being a never mind, I can't say that, but he was convicted of child pornography and all these other things, and he's still working.
Isn't like Roman Polanski someone that like Hollywood refuses to vilify and is just like, no, it's fine, and he's like a rapist or whatever?
Yeah, it was actually an underage girl, and he actually fled the country.
Right.
He's still wanted here.
And there's people in Hollywood that like defend him.
Yes, they refuse to vilify.
Stands up and applauds when he gets a damn award.
Okay, Roman Polanski has won Best Director. I think it was for The Pianist.
Yeah.
In recent years, and he obviously cannot attend. The Academy Award the Academy has made no objections to that. They said, we'll give you we'll nominate you, and if you get the votes, you'll win, but we're not going to give you the award until you come. And obviously, he can't do that.
Right. That, listeners, is the voice of Alexis
Hejna.
Remind me how to Hejna. I was going to say that, but it just didn't sound right in my head, and I apologize, Alexis. Alexis joins us tonight in the discussion of the firing of James Gunn. And she's bringing us a fourth voice that we so desperately need on here. A voice of a female perspective on it. So
welcome, token girl.
Yes, welcome, token girl.
And now Mark
I was
going to
say, I've been on your guys' show several times. I always figured my main job is token girl. Unless you guys start bringing in another female perspective on comics, movies, and such, pretty sure I am the token girl.
We don't know girls. We just we know one, and it's
we
you.
talk about comic books and movies and wrestling. There ain't a lot of girls we know.
We're just thankful you choose to hang out with us. Yes.
Happy to jump in. This is something that's been going on my company's wall, something I've been talking to other people about, and I'm happy to chime in on it.
Yeah, you had a personal thing happen. You want to go ahead and relate to the listeners how the firing of James Gunn kind of affected you and your business?
Yeah, it's a minor thing, really, but this just kind of caught my attention. Forgive me, I didn't hear if you guys mentioned the letter that made its way on Twitter and Instagram, signed by the Guardians of the Galaxy cast yet?
Not yet, yeah.
Okay. All right,
so you go right ahead and mention it.
Perfect segue.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, there you go. Well, those who don't know, a letter made its way on Instagram, Twitter, and a few other social medias.
I'm sorry, on what?
It was signed...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, is my phone not...
No, it's Mark. No, it's Mark being Mark.
You said it wrong.
Mark,
it's Instagram.
Mark, call back. Mark,
No, seriously, my phone's been acting very screwy, so if you guys say what, I'm going to genuinely assume you can't hear me, and my phone's being a bitch again.
Nope. I just want you to scream like Arnold Schwarzenegger on Instagram whenever you say it. Thank you.
Oh, God. All right, this letter was signed by majority of the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy cast. Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Dave Bautista, Michael Rooker, Bradley Cooper, Karen Gilliam, I believe Palm can't pronounce her last name, but the one who played Mantis.
Yeah, pomegranate.
Yeah, no, I seriously cannot pronounce her last name. I'm sorry, I love her, but I can't pronounce her.
Oh, no. I don't think she can pronounce her own name.
She's known as pomegranate on source material.
It's true.
Ow. Well, the letter made its way around, signed by these actors, saying that while they do not condone the jokes, and they're not saying that they support the jokes, they believe that that is not who James Gunn is anymore. This is a director they have worked with on 2 films, someone they're very close with, and they said basically, Disney, you guys overreacted, and we really want him rehired. So, obviously, it didn't take long for this to make news and started making its way around every facet of social media. I caught it, and I decided to share it on my company's wall. And I posted with that, sorry to get on a soapbox here. I usually do not like talking politics and such on my company. I know it's not why people come to shop for my wares. But I said that we supported the Guardians of the Galaxy cast, and we too believe that Disney had jumped the gun, so to speak, for a lack of better words. God, surprised that hasn't become a thing.
Yeah.
Well, less than a few hours later, we got a message from one of our frequent customers who has bought a lot of products from us in the past, saying flat out that they would no longer buy with us, and they were disgusted that we apparently supported somebody who supported pedophilia and the like. And which I said, okay, I thought, and I didn't write this, but I thought in my head, okay, wow, I think you're really jumping at straws here. But I did add to it, we do not support the jokes. No, they're meant to provoke, but we believe in forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And that's the big thing that caught me when I read most of those tweets. Yes, they were crude. They were disgusting. No one's going to sit back and say, oh, yeah, those were brilliant. They weren't. But they were clearly meant to provoke. I remember guys in my high school who said stupid things like that all the time before social media was invented. They were just they were meant to provoke. And if you've known James Gunn's earlier career, you know that's what he did. He provoked. He wanted to get under your skin. That's what he was trying to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we have the firing of James Gunn, and we have so many different people from so many different backgrounds supporting him and saying, "No, you made a mistake, Disney." I think we discussed a little bit on source material where we said different people from different backgrounds. I mean, Chris Pratt, who is an outspoken Christian, simply quoted some Bible scripture and said, "Hey, be slow to judge,"
Mm-hmm.
And then other people have said, supported, aired their support for him.
I know that comedian Bobcat Goldthwait, who it has actually he did the voice of, I think it was Pain in Hercules, who was one of the demons. Mm-hmm. And actually, his voice is still being used, I believe, at a Disney World or Disneyland ride voiceover that ties into Hercules.
Yeah, and he asked for it to be withdrawn.
Yeah, because he said, I've made similar jokes early in my career. It's like, apparently, if that's not okay, then I don't want, it's like, then don't be hypocrites.
Yeah. And he shares the same political views and has shared the same, kind of jokes in the past as James Gunn, and I agree with him, and I think that's a stand-up thing for him to do.
So, are you now? Do you know what the origin of this whole controversy started with? Like, do you know why these were unearthed and then publicized, under the heading of James Gunn's a terrible human being?
Actually, yes,
Oh my gosh, we all jumped at the gun.
Ronnie, moderate.
Alexis, go.
It's kind of disgusting, really. It was brought up by two, for a lack of better words, alt-right commentators as revenge against James Gunn for voicing his disgust at President Trump.
Pat.
Yeah, basically it's James Gunn has been very vocal and very public about his, we'll say, disagreements with what Donald Trump has done as president. And due to that, you're going to make political enemies. And these two guys who are, alt-right is an accurate word to describe them, but also conspiracy theorists would be another way to describe them, too.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so they basically they really dug to find whatever they could to try to cast James Gunn in a negative light, and this was what they came up with, these tweets from 10 years ago or so.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what were you going to say?
Well, now you got to take things a step further, right? So you have somebody out there who speaks out against our president, and in return, the president's lackeys, people who support the president, then instead of engaging in a debate or try to educate, just find trash on them and then put it out there for public consumption. Now, Disney could have responded in a number of different ways, but Disney sort of looked at the bottom line and said, "This will end in protest." Some group out there, and let us remember what Disney does. Disney makes, sells products to families, to children. Okay, that's most of what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they're looking at this. They're looking at the situation, and they had to have been thinking, you know what? No one man is worth the number of protests and the number of boycotts
dollars
that are going to come out of this that will affect our bottom line. It isn't worth it. He's not worth it. Who gives a shit? Let's just distance ourselves from him. They're not taking any kind of a moral stance. Let's be clear about that. Disney looked at the situation and said, this is going to cost us money. Cut bait and move on.
Aren't they, though?
No.
You don't think so?
No, not in the least.
Okay.
Well,
Disney we're
like
talking
the
about.
one,
Come on.
say like the customer on my wall. If you guys have been following all this on everyone else's Instagram and Twitter follows, there are quite a few who really believe that Gunn is a sick, disgusting human being, and they are thrilled that he's gone. They want to cut ties with him. They're disgusted that all these other actors and companies and whatever are supporting him. They look at these jokes and they think, how could anyone be this reprehensible?
So I think there's a Guardians of the Galaxy ride that's coming to one of the theme parks, and next year, one of the big releases, I believe, it's either next year or the year after, is Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
2020.
It's 2020. And so you figure, when you have both movies who I believe has made upwards of around $1 billion or so, give or take, the third one's going to have the big red carpet roll out. It's going to be one of the main jewels of the summer release schedule. I'm sure it'll be released in May. When you think about the presentation that Disney is going for, remember, there's a lot of money in their image. The last thing they need during one of these big premiere events is a group of people standing by with signs that says Disney supports pedophiles.
Okay. So let's take a look at an opposite direction. The New York Times just hired someone. Forgive me once again. I forget her name.
I hate Whitey at twitter.com.
Yeah. We'll just go with that. They just hired someone. Sarah Jeong, I guess is how you say her name. She has publicly spoken out about how she hates white people and how she thinks they should. I mean, let's be honest. She's tweeted that white people should die. That white people are
genocide.
Yeah, I got up the tweet that I got up the post that Pat put up comparing what she did to Roseanne. So yeah, it's Sarah Young, and it's, are white people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun, thus logically being only fit to live underground like groveling goblins. And the other one is dumbass fucking white people marking up the internet with their opinions like dogs pissing on fire hydrants. And these are from 2014.
Right. 4 years ago. Should the New York Times cut bait and run from that?
Well, again, what's the New York Times selling these days? Anything? Do people still buy the paper?
Enough.
Let's put it this way.
That's one of the only papers that they do buy.
Let's put it this way. What are the odds that there's going to be a group out there standing in front of the New York Times building saying the New York Times doesn't support white people?
They can't. Those people have jobs. They don't have time to protest.
Oh, Pat.
No, in all seriousness, like I said, it's about image. Disney's a great target for boycotts. They get a lot of press, and again, you're talking about. I know the argument that Pat's making is, why is it when white people blah blah yakety schmackety, but when it's a blah blah yakety schmackety, it's different. I've been hearing that, I feel like, for the last 20 years. But here's the thing, and again, I want you to picture the image. A group of rabble-rousers, signs in hand that says the New York Times doesn't support white people. One, no one's going to do that. Two, even if they did, the news wouldn't bother with it. It's not a story. White people are privileged, in theory, in this country. No one's going to care about this sob story. However, in the middle of...
You said privileged.
Privileged is what I said. Privileged.
I know.
Privileged, whatever. But and think about like Disney Hollywood Springs outside of the AMC in Orlando. Big red carpet, lots of families around, and suddenly this group comes up with signs that says Disney hates children, Disney supports pedophiles. That's everywhere. That goes all over the news. And so like should they fire or hire her? That's up to them. I said before, like before Alexis got on, I think you should be hired or fired based on your talent. not on stupid shit you say in your personal Twitter. On the other hand, again, she could be on Twitter right now, but going fuck white people and the horse they rode in on, and I don't think it affects the New York Times sales of papers.
I hate to say it, it may actually lead to an increase. Could be sort of the thing that says we want to know what this person says next.
Yeah, that's how Rush Limbaugh got his audience. People on both sides of the fence going, "What is this asshole going to say next?" Whether they agreed or disagreed, he's likely to say anything. That's
how Howard Stern got his audience.
Yep. So
okay.
So again, it's a different company with a different mindset that attracts a different audience. The New York, if Roseanne goes and makes the same tweet comparing the one woman to the Planet of the Apes character, but works for a different network, a network that isn't owned by Disney, maybe she keeps her job. Maybe it doesn't matter as much.
Well,
but again, it's Disney.
Let's take a different perspective too, because what really got these tweets noticed were two guys who are very, very alt-right and took issue with comments publicly that James Gunn has made against Donald Trump. Now, if you want to talk a controversial comment that's been made, there's always the grab him by the pussy comment.
Mm-hmm.
That is constantly used against Donald, which again, I think it's very similar in the same context to what we're talking about here. First
Absolutely.
off, it happened years ago. Second off, much like we talked about, where James Gunn has never actively been accused of, seen doing anything of the sort of these tweets, we've never seen Donald Trump grab a woman by the pussy. And the only thing he's being sued for in terms of Stormy Daniels is that he had an affair, a consensual one at that. So, much like we have the alt-right, we have the alt-left, and what we're seeing is the two sides of the same coin, trying basically almost like an arms race type deal to see who can dig up what public face of this, left or right wing has said something more disgusting, and who's the lesser of the two evils to really make you see who's right and who's wrong here.
But but here's the thing, I think we've all read 1984 at some point, and how the idea of language being used against people and how it can affect a culture and a society when you dumb down the language, when you remove art from the public square,
or Common Core math.
The point being that the whole reason I wanted to talk about this, because whether or not James Gunn loses a directing gig in the grand scheme of things doesn't really affect my life. But
Mark Radulich doesn't lose any sleep, folks.
And no, not for that reason at least. But he'll get another gig. Somebody else will employ him. But I'm not really worried about James Gunn. But what does worry me is, one, the propulsion of what you say over what you do. If you say a dumb thing, that seems to matter more than the good things you've ever done in your life. That's troubling. But even more so is I don't want to see a sanitized, homogenized society, in a cultural square. No, it's not. But it's not too late. The realist. I know it's frustrating, but we're not there yet. You can still find weird shit out there. Whatever your particular peccadillos and druthers are, you can look if it's out there. What is the line? Whatever you can think of, there's porn of it. So as long as we have that to hang our hats on, we're still doing okay. But what frightens me is that when stuff like this starts to bubble up, and there's more of it, and more people willing to sign away individual expression for a universal safe space, because that's the thing that comedians in the past have always talked about. That or someone like Jello Biafra. Say what you will about the dead Kennedys and Jello Biafra. One of the things I've always been in agreement with him over is I want to make noise. I want to be able to go on a podcast and speak my mind and not have to. And regardless of jokes or not, let it be out there. Give people a chance to create art. Give people a chance to create something that can be disagreed with. and have that debate, and that's all fine. That all makes for a lively, social community.
Yeah,
Because I think the exact opposite of what's happening out there very slowly, but it's happening. Seems bigger than it really is, but it could get so much bigger. Is people are going to be afraid to say anything, and you have no debates, and that's
right.
when, like, if you think Donald Trump is bad, Donald Trump is just Ronald McDonald. He's an icon. We're people who living in a world that's changing faster than they want. When he goes out there and says, "I'm jobs for everybody," sure, because it's 1940. Got it.
Man, Jersey Jackson called New York Town. Come on.
So
we say crazy shit all over the place for years, and it didn't matter.
Right. Now
I'm all about not having a universal safe space myself, because once we take the right away for anybody to say anything, or someone to say something, we lose the right for anybody to say anything.
Yeah, and we become England, and who the hell wants that?
I would have gone with Saudi Arabia, but sure, England.
Okay, England. But that hurts me in multiple different ways. I mean, I'll just go this route with it. That hurts me in my faith. I wouldn't be able to share what I believe with people, and nobody would be able to in that sense. And it's just I'm all about let people say what they want, whether it's dumb or not, because in the end they're the ones that's going to pay for it.
What the other side of this though is, why do we care what James Gunn thinks? So
we shouldn't, but we do. We put these people on a pedestal, and we make heroes out of people that are just people. He's a person that makes mistakes. He's not a god. He's not a hero. He's a person, just like any other star. Nobody. That's why I hate reality TV. These people are stupid. Why are we giving them a platform to say anything? And and you look at stars and athletes and all this. What do you think about the political climate? I don't care what
I catch a ball for a living.
Right.
I don't care. And the baseball go very far, and I take the money to feed the family, and guys, good.
I legitimately do not care what any of them think. So while the content of these tweets is vile, I agree with Mark. He's never been convicted of that. It's never been proven that he's done that. He was just, and just like Alexis said, he's just trying to create waves. He's just trying to get seen and known, and shock people into noticing who he is.
I work with people who get arrested for child pornography and molestation and everything. They're not tweeting about it.
No, they're hiding it.
They're not on social media giving an opinion on the matter.
But then wouldn't that be the best cover for it?
Oh my! Don't put anything.
That guy just talked about how he likes to look at little boys' asses in the park. Clearly, he's not guilty of child porn. Next.
Don't put that idea out there. Someone will try to use it.
People listening to this show going, "Hey, did you hear what these assholes were talking about? Listen, they came up with a great idea for getting away with it. Listen to this now."
Somebody call Uncle Paul.
Oh my God,
Alexis, you want to jump in here?
Jump in here.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you guys, but I keep going
Please
back
do.
to that. I keep going back to that line you guys said that we're in the middle of almost an arms race between the right and the left, and it's scary how accurate actually that is. I'm an independent voter. I am neither left or right, though I will admit I do tend to lean a little more to the left. And I've been looking so much at how our political climate has not become let us debate, let us figure out the best solution. It has been violently biting the heads off of anyone who would dare disagree with our chosen leaders. There is actually a picture making its way around the internet right now. It's these two guys at a Trump rally, and they're wearing shirts that say, "I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat."
Well, that's the thing, like if Donald Trump says, I think the best way to solve the immigration issue is to build a giant wall, there aren't, I mean, the knee-jerk reaction seems to be not to say, and again, I'm oversimplifying it and just giving a very general example, but it's less of, hey, here's the problem with the wall and why it's not going to work, and more of, didn't you fuck a porn star years ago? Like, what is
it's gone beyond intelligent conversation into wild screeching of no, I'm right, no, I'm right.
No, exactly. I really feel that the days of simple, intelligent debate may be behind us. I really see this country devolving, and it's getting ugly, and it's really disturbing to think that someone who's a film director who, let's face it, has only made 2 really good movies. I've never seen Slither. I've heard it's good, but nobody is going to say, like, yeah, Slither was awesome. No one's going to talk about that.
Sorry, Ronnie.
Slither was awesome.
I'm sure it was, but it's not.
Everyone turn and yell at Alexis now.
No, I'm sure it was awesome, but no, it's not going to. No one's going to remember, Slither as being as big as Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, this is a director who's given us 2 films. They were very good films, but really only 2 films that he's really going to be remembered for in the grand scheme of things by the larger majority of people. And that he voiced his displeasure, like so many other people have, about Donald Trump. And that was worth, in a nutshell, destroying his career over.
Right.
And so by extension, you have people going, well, I could in a free society go out and voice my opinion on any number of social media sites, or I could continue working and just kind of quietly accept whatever's happening. That's going to be the decision people start to make. And on the, and look, well, on the one hand, I don't really care what a celebrity thinks about Donald Trump's, policies. I do become fearful that, like, people always like to throw that, well, you have the First Amendment. The First Amendment only says that the president can't have you arrested by the FBI for shit you say. It doesn't stop. England? It doesn't stop you from getting fired from your job. There's a reason why when I talk about personal stuff on any of my podcasts, I leave names out. I don't specify where I work. I try to be as vague as I possibly can. If I bring it up at all. If you mention the fucking dog, Pat, I'm going to come to Jersey and hit you over the head. God damn it. But it doesn't stop you from being fired, and it certainly doesn't stop people from, finding personal information about you and putting it out there and creating their own narrative. And that's what happened to James Gunn. James Gunn didn't attack a child. James Gunn put stupid shit on Twitter, and because he disagreed with the president publicly, they created a narrative around him that James Gunn is a bad guy because of things he said.
Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but nobody believes that other people are entitled to their own opinion. We have on both sides. I don't care if it's left, right, dead center, whatever. Every
up,
time,
down, left, right, B-A, select.
Start. Contra code. Super contra code.
Random note for the evening.
It boils down to, I'm right no matter what you say. We're not going to debate this, and if you disagree with me, you're the devil. And it doesn't matter what side you're on, who you agree with, or whatever. Those opinions reign over every side. I mean, I don't care. If you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever. those are the, that's on both sides. I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to fight you for it.
I think there's also the idea that it's terrifying to think that something that you said as a joke over 10 years ago will be grudged up and used against you like this. I mean, let's face it, guys. I don't think that any of us in this conversation are the same person we were 10 years ago.
Right.
I know we grow, we evolve, we change. And it really scares me to think that I could be in a career and then somebody could find something that the world could change, and something that I said years ago may become very taboo, and something that I say could be brought up against me years from now, and everything's over from there, and that's really scary.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can absolutely tell you that, and just in the last 5 years, I've had some significant changes in my life and the way that I perceive things. I mean, it's funny, Melissa says all the time, she was like, when I first met you, you were doing a conservative podcast, and that, and now you seem different. Okay, so that's almost 10 years we've been together. But yeah, my take on things change, and more information comes out that changes my mind. And and the thought that if I ever I joke about this all the time with Jesse, but I sometimes get frustrated at the level, after doing this since 2006, at the level that the Radulich and Broadcasting Network has gotten to, and that it hasn't gotten further, and people who are newer in podcasting have. And then I see stuff like this happen, and I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'll toil in obscurity. It's fine. Because the last thing I need is for someone to pull up something that I said in 2007, and then I walk into work one day and be like, I understand this has nothing to do with your actual ability to do your job, but we don't want people protesting outside the jail, so go see Human Resources. You're fired.
Right.
And yet you continue to let me on shows.
Yeah, well.
And it does show just how much things have changed in society. I actually brought this up on a different Facebook board a couple of weeks ago. This is going to sound a little off topic, but I swear to God I'm bringing it back in.
Go for it.
Do you guys ever watch Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Of course, Natasha.
Very familiar.
Okay. I got the complete DVD set, and I used to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle on, I believe it was Nickelodeon when I was a kid. And I loved it. And a couple of weeks ago, I was watching it again, just watching my DVDs. And there was an episode where I'm going to make
Mr. Peabody touched Sherman?
Oh, no, we haven't gotten to that, thankfully, yet. No, short version, it deals with a Chinese laundromat. And considering that this came out in the 60s, I want you guys to fill the blanks. And the episode has an antagonist who is a blatant Chinese stereotype, slant eyes, buck
just like
the accent, the whole shebang.
Just like the dude from Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, and so I'm watching this DVD, and I'm kind of laughing at it, and then I realized, wait, this episode aired on TV when I was a kid. This was not censored, and I think, and I mentioned this on the board, like how bizarre it is, the evolution of what is politically correct has changed so much that cartoons like that used to air during the daytime and no one batted an eye at it.
That guy's still hilarious.
I love the old Bugs Bunny cartoons that you can't show on TV anymore.
Yeah.
Didn't they stop showing Speedy Gonzales? Not because of Speedy, but because of Slowpoke Rodriguez and the lazy Mexican rats they always used to show.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they really did.
But interestingly enough, you know who the only group was that didn't protest Speedy Gonzales?
Mexicans.
Yeah, Mexicans. They said, we don't care.
Right.
They stopped airing Porky Pig for a while because someone was scared the stutter was going to get insulting. But again, that's the idea of how our world and what is politically correct changes so dramatically. And what was kosher 20 years ago is not good. You know, is suddenly looked as being, oh no, we don't bring that up. We don't talk about that. No, making a cross sign with the fingers.
Okay, so I need to bring this up now because you
Are you
mentioned
going to talk
that.
about how the Asian guy from Mr. Magoo should have been a lead?
No, but we haven't had a good Pat rant yet, and I feel like that's what the audience has been waiting for. So, Pat, I'm gonna set the ball. You spike it, okay?
Turn me up.
All right. So we've kind of evolved the conversation now into, this enlarging safe space where we can't really put anything out that's offensive or anything, or whatever, because somebody's feelings might get hurt. Meanwhile, they want to reboot All in the Family and the Jeffersons, which when I brought this up at work, everybody around me was like, why would you do that now in 2018 when the whole point of those shows were that they were provocative? Pat?
I feel I have to set up a Pat rant because Pat hasn't really had a good rant on Screaming Boy. So you haven't ever had a good rant on here. So for those of you who have not listened to or have heard a Pat rant, they are legendary. So
Jim Cornette ain't got nothing on me, fellas.
Not a dang thing.
So
it actually makes sense.
So again, we're living in a world where nothing provocative. People are afraid to put out something provocative, or we'll get in trouble for it. Meanwhile, they want to reboot two of the most provocative shows of their age. Pat,
go.
What you want to do is you want everybody to be special and loved, and everybody's good at something, and everybody's good at everything, and every kid gets a trophy. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the most publicly racist face of the 1970s, that being Carroll O'Connor as Archie Bunker, and what you're going to do is bring him into the modern day, where aside from not being able to use terms he used on a regular basis, like calling the Jeffersons the colored people across the street, calling Jefferson's mother his mammy, constantly making jokes about Polacks, Jews, who else am I missing here? Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans there across the street don't even know what language they speak there, Jefferson. So you're going to take that. And then on top of that, you're going to take the spin-off show where every other word out of George Jefferson's mouth was honky and offend every white person. But that was okay. You know why it was okay? Because in the 1970s, we weren't a bunch of goddamn pussies who needed everybody to have feelings for us and coddle us and feed us mother's milk from her bosom, because we weren't offended at every little goddamn thing. And when we were offended, we didn't run to some safe space. You said, hey, fuck you, and you punch somebody in the mouth. And even if you lost, you got respect for doing it. But this all originates with the stupid every kid gets a trophy rule, and everybody's a special bunch of little special fuckers. I'm special, you're special. We're all just all goddamn special in every fucking way. And you're no better than me, and I'm no better than you, but I really am better than you because I'm this and you're not, and your people enslaved my people, so you should pay for that, and I should get a hand up, not a handout. And, well, you're constantly feeding off my teat because I pay my tax dollars and it puts you through school. And everybody's got their own little thing about how nothing is sacred anymore and we need to get together. Well, if you want everybody to be together and be equal, stop identifying as anything other than a fucking human. Stop putting special interest groups together to divide and conquer. Everybody in the world should make one racist joke at each other. You know why? Because it would open lines of communication for somebody to laugh and not take everything so goddamn serious. And just stop being fucking pussies, for the love of God. Stop it. Somebody offends you, you tell them to go fuck themselves. You don't like what somebody has to say? Say something in return and move on. You don't feel safe here? Fucking move. Goddamn.
would you like some extra cheese on that?
Take your blood pressure medicine.
On you motherfucker.
Can I jump in on something?
Absolutely, please do.
This is something actually I've been thinking about for a while. The whole idea of us, needing to respect all the special interest groups. I don't think it's so much that all of a sudden we feel the need. It's that now, thanks to, again, social media, the internet, and the ability to connect with like minds, special interest groups all of a sudden are finding out that they're larger than they were. I think about the 1970s when All in the Family and the Jeffersons was a big thing. And I think about these small groups who probably had no way of knowing how to connect with other people who thought like them. So there wasn't a large enough voice to stand up and say, we don't like it. I'm not saying I support it. I'm just saying I think this is what's happened. But now that we're able to connect so much like that, all of a sudden these smaller groups have connected into a larger group, and now they're able to finally have a platform to stand up. I mean, for God's sakes, we actually had a Rob Lowe commercial pulled because he made a joke about how he can't pee in front of other people. And it turns out that there is a support group for people who have this kind of problem, and they said, we feel offended. And I'm thinking, 40 years ago, who would have known that existed? Who would have known that this was actually a group, that there was a large enough group of people who had this issue? It's not that these people never existed before, it's just that they now know how to group together and how to really just stand up together.
What you're talking about is the long tail. And I've Jesse and I talked about this on a show a little ways back. One of our TV parties, I think, we brought this up, where it used to be, it might have actually been the Ministry show now that I think about it, from Metal Hammer of Doom. But basically, pre-internet, you had a handful of very large groups that had enough funding and enough resources and enough, to get their message into the very few outlets there were to get a message out there: TV, radio, newspapers, etc. The internet comes along and creates two changes. One, it gives everyone with an internet connection an outlet. Two, it creates a long tail of infinitesimally small groups for exactly what Alexis is saying. A small group of people to find each other, but create big noise. And that's where we are right now. It feels like a lot of these groups are bigger than they really are. I think we should keep that in perspective, that it's not so much the size, it's the volume. I mean, if I go on, I have access to Facebook, and I can cull Facebook to what I want it to be to a degree, but ultimately something's going to end up on my feed that I didn't want there in the first place. That I would have never have exposed myself to purposefully, but it'll be there because somebody I follow in my 400 friends, someone's going to post something that I would never have found on my own, and that's where we are right now. Is that if and let's take it back to James Gunn. So most reasonable people look at that, roll their eyes, and goes, "You probably shouldn't have said those things in a public forum, dumbass," and moved on with their life. But a smaller section of people are able to get on the internet, get on social media, say this is the worst thing ever, and Disney's a terrible company for employing him because he believes the things that because he said these things, and everybody has access to that message. It's louder than a bomb.
I'm going to go a step further, and I blame 24-hour news even before the internet. Mm-hmm. Because there is a sensationalism to this news. Because you're on 24 hours a day, you have to draw your ratings from somewhere. And so they take the smallest thing, or they take something that's happened that could be big, and we'll say, God forbid, this actually, another one actually happens, but we'll say a plane crash. They take this news, and instead of saying a plane has gone down, people have lost their lives, this is sad, they hit it from every possible angle that they can think of. Then they have specialists come on and analyze it, and then they have extra specialists come on and analyze those specialists, And then they do this for 12, 14, 16 hours in a row and re-air it and everything else. And it just takes something that should have just been, this is what happened, and here are the facts, and they blow it up into a sensationalized media frenzy. So we go on that, we springboard from that to everybody has their own forum. So we go, and every news station, every news outlet, no matter what it is, has an agenda. And be it conservative, liberal, whatever, there is an agenda. And the main agenda for these news outlets is ratings. So they take something, they blow it up, and then everybody has an opinion on that. So they voice, all these different factions voice their opinion on what has happened. And then we get into the I'm special, you're, let me dumb it down a little bit. We get into that a very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Stupid.
Stupid is one word for it. But narcissistic attitude of I'm right, and I shouldn't have to listen to anybody else. Attitude, and don't want to listen to anybody else. So there are a lot of, and it's just everybody's just screaming at each other, and it just reminds me of a ball game where everybody's just screaming at each other, and nobody knows what's going on, and nobody, you don't really hear the person next to you. You just know that they're cheering for the other team, and they hate your team, and they hate you because you like that team.
Kind of reminds me of WCW at the Nassau Coliseum. No one knew what was going on in the ring. We were all too busy fighting each other.
Right, absolutely, and that's what's and that is exactly what's happening today. Nobody really knows what's going on. We're just too busy fighting each other because we think we're right. Period. Done. I'm right. You're wrong. Get over it. No, I'm right. You're wrong. You can get over it. All right, let's fight now.
Well, I was going to say, it's even worse than that. It's, I'm right, you're wrong, you're a Nazi. Oh, I'm right, you're wrong, you're a racist.
Or a snowflake, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nazi. How many times...
that if we actually let fistfights happen, this would be settled quicker.
It's probably true.
Get the feelings out, get the shit out, your fistfight's over, that's it. You move on.
I'm from a small town in West Virginia. If somebody pissed you off and you had a disagreement, two guys would fist fight and be best friends the next day.
Whether you're in Logan County or whether you're in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, that's how it works.
Yeah. I mean, you got the crap out. You didn't have to necessarily listen to each other, but you just know you disagreed. You fought it out, and then you're like, you know what? That was kind of dumb. Let's be friends now. End of story.
All right, Ronnie, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap things up?
No. I mean, does anybody have anything they want to add? We'll start with Alexis. Do you have anything else do you want to add to the conversation? Or do you want to fist fight me?
Kind of hard considering I'm the only person here who doesn't, live on your guys' side of the country. I live in the freaking Midwest, so.
I think you'd take me.
Good to know. No, like I said, I really am worried about where our country is going with this. The fact that not only that these kind of things can be drug up to attack you from your past, but yeah, the idea that nobody wants to back down, nobody wants to say maybe they were wrong, nobody wants to do research to support their purpose. They just want to, play the goon on a game of hockey, take off the gloves and start punching each other's teeth out.
Yep.
And it's very disconcerting that this is where we're kind of ending up.
Pat.
Spank your kids, because if you do that, odds are they won't end up being the whiny little punk who feels entitled to everything, and then you won't have this problem with them. So start spanking your kids, and you avoid a lot of these issues that we're having today.
I think
Mark.
I can sum this entire thing up. Learn to laugh or roll your eyes.
Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Cry, and I'll give you something to cry about, you little son of a...
Perfect. End show. Plugs.
I can't think of anything. I can't think of any better way to end the show. So we will go to plugs. We'll start with Alexis. Please tell us what's going on with you.
Honeysuckle Rose Creations. We're taking August off from our convention scene. August is tripping on my words here. We're actually in the middle of a month-long sale with both of our stores, Etsy and Handmade at Amazon, 15% off of all of our merchandise, and that is all month long.
Wonderful. Do you have Facebook, webpage?
We are on Facebook. Again, why do I have to say Instagram like Arnold Schwarzenegger, by the way? I never got that joke.
You don't.
Okay. Instagram, Twitter.
On the what?
Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Etsy, and Handmade at Amazon. Again, everything in our stock is 15% off all month long.
Perfect. Pat?
First, I'd like to say God bless America, because if we didn't live in America, we couldn't do this. They'd throw us in jail. So, right on freedom. Just prior to this, recorded what is likely to, at least for a while, be my last episode of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. If you would like to know why that is such a thing, you can go ahead and listen to at least the first 15 minutes of the show that aired tonight. I encourage you, though, to listen to the show as a whole going forward. Can't say enough good about Robert Winfrey and the job he does on that show, and what can oftentimes be not so fun. Also, just recorded an episode of Source Material with Jesse Starcher, where we talk one of my favorite Thor storylines ever, Thor the Reigning, from the end of Dan Jurgens' run on Thor, which was from 98 to 2004. Really just tremendous show for us. I had a blast. Jesse actually really got into it, too, with a story he'd never heard of, and by the end of it was loving. So go on over there and give it a listen. And pretty soon, more content from the Casual Heroes. Just had a little group powwow with myself, Jed, Gavin, and Chris. So you can be on the lookout for a couple new episodes dropping next month.
All right, Mark.
This week on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, Sean Comer and I are back again for another show. We're going to do a TV party tonight for Orange is the New Black Season 6. Then on Damn You Hollywood, Robert Winfrey and I are going to have a good cry as we review Christopher Robin. I saw it today with my kids. Listen, I pay attention to my children, so that message didn't necessarily, as far as teaching me a lesson, didn't resonate with me. But boy, was I bawling in the back of the theater. My wife sent to the kids over, was like, "Daddy needs hugs," and I'm like, and I did. It was a very, very maudlin, but well put together movie.
That is. I saw that yesterday. That is a movie that makes you feel like you want to hug. I just remember sitting in the back on, I want my teddy bear and I want to hug it.
Yeah, I definitely gave my children big hugs when that movie was over. And then speaking of big hugs, on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we'll be reviewing Bleeding Through. Love Will Kill All. And then if you haven't had enough of me and Sean, we reviewed Glow Season 2 on TV Party Tonight last week. And a week from Monday, we'll have our on trial for the month of August, where we'll look at Dances with Wolves. Damn You Hollywood will review the latest Shock movie, The Meg, and the Metal Hammer of Doom will look at Celtic Meddler's Cruiton. And that's all for now.
Right on. This is Scream Boy Podcast. You can find us right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, as well as iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio,
and Spotify,
and Spotify. Actually, believe it or not, even though we haven't really put anything out on our own here recently, still submitted us to Spotify too. But we're on Spotify with the Radulich Broadcasting Network, which, I mean, you can't say enough good, there is a show here for everyone. So if you haven't found anything yet that you can listen to on here, you're just not looking. So quit being stupid.
Or you've listened to Jason Teasley.
Yeah, you could do that.
Only kidding, Jay. Thanks for listening.
But we have past couple of shows have been specials here on the network, and they've been great. We've had Pat and Mark and Jesse and myself discussing Toys R Us and the demise of Toys R Us, and then we also discussed Movie Pass. It's always, if you haven't heard it, it's always great fun to hear Jesse Starcher. You can actually hear his blood pressure raising.
I quit Movie Pass and joined AMC's A-list. Yep, I'm done.
I don't blame you. Movie Pass is garbage, and I will go on record saying that. It's out there on the internet now. So you're garbage, Movie Pass. You're garbage. You started off good, now you suck. So please give us a like. Give us, find us on Facebook, the Instagram.
Thank
there you go, Mark. No problem. And Twitter. So Screaming Boy Productions Screaming Boy Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, and Screaming Boy PR on Twitter. You will not find anything gross on our Twitter. So please check us out. Give us a follow. Give us a like.
The Screaming Boy Twitter, 100% less rape jokes.
So true. And reach out to us and let us know you listen. We love to hear from you. By the way, if you go on our Instagram, you will find pictures from the Raleigh SuperCon. So if you are a North Carolina native and you happen to be at the Raleigh SuperCon, please go on and see if you're cosplaying, see if your picture showed up in on our Instagram, and tag yourself in it. We would love to hear from you. It was a lot of fun. That show was great, or that con was great. It was my first Raleigh SuperCon. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, folks, for Alexis, Pat, Mark for being on here. Thank you, Mark, for letting us use the network. We truly appreciate that. And that being said, everybody be good. No, I'm not going to take Mark's line. Y'all have a good one. We're out.
The two megastars summer mashup, the awesome iPhone on the Rockstar Metro PCS network. Get the iPhone you've always wanted for $0, so you can jam without limits.
It's a hit. Get an iPhone SE on us when you switch. Metro PCS. Coverage not available in some areas, plus sales tax and $10 activation fee. Requires port-in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network or on Metro PCS and past 90 days to an unlimited LTE plan. See store for details and terms and conditions.